Pompeo. Economic help for North Korea, but only if it fully ditches its nukes.
If North Korea takes bold action, the United States is prepared to work with North Korea to achieve prosperity.
Pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal will make it harder to negotiate successfully with North Korea or anyone else.
The FBI may have had a spy in or interacting with the Trump campaign during the 2016 election.
It's like the sickest spy novel I've ever read, except it actually happened.
The problem is everybody is meeting hysteria with more hysteria. And then we just are all becoming hysterical. And it's getting worse. This is your time to rise.
But no, we are up, we are here, and we are excited.
Right,
are we up?
Yep.
Ready to go?
We're excited.
If you're in California, you might still be up if you're
That's
watching
okay.
this right now.
We don't judge on the show.
We don't judge at all.
Wherever you're watching, whatever time
Proud
it
of
is,
you.
we're happier with us.
We're proud of you.
Yeah, we're
Fading to sleep right now, a little intoxicated in California, you're watching us. We welcome you, just like every Up and Adam viewer in New York City right now.
It's been a pretty intense news week. Right before the show, we're talking about what day did the president pull out of the Iran nuclear deal? Oh, and then the hostages released, the Americans coming home. It was a remarkable week.
And, oh, by the way, you've got an embassy opening in Jerusalem early next week. I mean, it's almost as if you can't keep up with the pace of what's happening and the way America's role on the world stage.
Yeah, so far in President Trump's, in the presidency, I would say this was the biggest, most important week when it comes to foreign policy. And probably the top of that is North Korea. And Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, he now says that there will be economic benefits to North Korea if they denuclearize. Take a listen to this.
If Chairman Kim chooses the right path, there is a future brimming with peace and prosperity for the North Korean people. If North Korea takes bold action to quickly denuclearize, the United States is prepared to work with North Korea to achieve prosperity on the par with our South Korean friends. If he is prepared to fully denuclearize, it would be an activity that undertook to ensure that we didn't end up in the same place that we'd ended up before. It will require a robust verification program, and one that that we will undertake with partners around the world, which will achieve that outcome in a way that, frankly, no agreement before it has ever set forth.
First of all, think about how important Mike Pompeo has become in this administration.
No honeymoon period for Mike Pompeo.
He's basically not slept in a couple of weeks. But also, more importantly, think about the trust this president has in Mike Pompeo, the kind of trust he did not have in Rex Tillerson, clearly. They were not on the same page. But he has now made 2 secret missions to North Korea in a matter of weeks, going back to Easter weekend. That shows you the trust the commander-in-chief has in him, but also shows just how sensitive these diplomatic negotiations have been. And so far, the fact that they brought home these Americans without any conditions and said, we're not sitting at the table with you on June 12th unless you bring those Americans home.
That's right.
That was a big deal.
How powerful that moment was. Ed, you were anchoring here on Fox, but just how proud you were to be an American in that moment when those prisoners landed on U.S. soil, the look on their faces. I think, though, Pete, this is what's going on with North Korea should be a reminder for all of us when it comes to diplomacy. For years and years, we've stayed within a box that we do things a certain way.
Yeah.
And President Trump has come in, has not been in politics until now, and has done it completely differently and said, you know what, I'm going to push the envelope here. I'm going to get tough. And yeah, I might threaten to go to war with North Korea because we are dealing with irrational players. We're seeing that maybe we should handle diplomacy a little differently. It could end differently.
You might, exactly. You might say this is the pace of a CEO, not the pace of the swamp. It's not the conventional wisdom. He's doing things differently. You're right. It was Armageddon, right? We were going to go to nuclear war on the peninsula. Now here we are. We've got a date set, June 12th, for Kim Jong-un and President Trump in Singapore to sit down. They say it will just be the 2 of them, obviously an interpreter, maybe a few others. We'll see how that all shakes out. Think about the stakes of that meeting and that moment. But what it takes for that moment to come to fruition is the last 18 months, is everything that went into it. You can't magically create that moment. He did that. And I think yesterday, that was Mike Pompeo when he was speaking, the sound we showed with the foreign minister of South Korea. It's been a full court press, step by step, to lay the groundwork for something meaningful. Because I think what this Trump White House knows is you can't pull an Iran deal 2.0. You've got to do the real deal. There's no sunset clause. There's no money up front. You can't keep testing your missiles.
You know who's not satisfied?
You give it
Good. tour to Australia. It's interesting. The Wall Street
she's done the tour in the U.S.
Yeah, now
so the next step is to
she's
go
down
outside.
under now,
yeah.
literally, and it's kind of a low blow because she's, going overseas and blasting the American president about the Iran deal. Watch.
Pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal will make it harder to negotiate successfully with North Korea or anyone else. Pulling out of that agreement makes America less safe and less trusted, and Iran more dangerous. As Secretary of State, I helped negotiate the crippling international sanctions that brought Iran to the table. It would be much harder a second time now that our credibility is shot.
Okay, so less safe, less trusted, Iran more dangerous. Here's the irony of it. Everything Team Obama did is guilty of in Iran is what they're criticizing Trump for on North Korea, or preemptively trying to criticize him of. You're saying, well, it better be verifiable. Wait, your deal wasn't verifiable in Iran. We couldn't check the military sites. No money. You better not give them any money. Relieve the sanctions. Wait, you gave Iran $1.7 billion in cash up front. Wait, no hostage.
And where is that cash going? By the way,
we know where it's
to
going
build up their program in Syria.
And support terrorism around the world. So talk about less safe. ISIS grew under their watch. Talk about less trusted. Is it executive action never ratified by Congress?
Well,
Iran
to your
more
point,
dangerous?
Last fall on social media, it was Ben Rhodes, the architect of the Iran nuclear deal within the Obama administration, who was on Twitter attacking the president again and again about North Korea and saying this rhetoric is leading us to Armageddon, as you said a moment ago. And so you have the person who crafted the weak Iran nuclear deal criticizing this president over North Korea. What's working out now? The North Korea part of this, because we are back from the brink of nuclear.
Well, and you also have John Kerry, who's meeting with Iranian officials. And so Hillary Clinton's over in Melbourne, Australia, kind of saying the same message. She also hit on her race for the presidency, as she's still talking about, as we all know.
She's still
but
talking
talked
about
about how there's some Americans that feel uneasy about women in leadership positions. Here she is.
There is still a very large proportion of the population that is uneasy with women in positions of leadership. And so the easiest way to kind of avoid having to look at someone on her merits is to dismiss her on her looks.
In the second debate, in wandering around that little stage, it was very clear that Trump was stalking me, looming over me, trying to intimidate me, and he was doing it very deliberately. He was sending a message to people watching, look, I am the big person on the stage. This is what a president looks like. We've never had a president who looks like that.
Wow. So you still play the woman card. I would argue we have more women in leadership positions and powerful positions, particularly in government and wanting to run for office, than we ever have before. So I don't know what she's trying to get at here.
I'm uneasy sitting next to you every morning.
Right. I understand
Position
it.
of leadership, I'm not comfortable.
I saw someone
Come on.
I saw someone tweet yesterday. Women who there are people who don't want women in leadership right now. Yeah, they're in the states of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, the states that she lost, because it wasn't about being a woman. It was about being the candidate that a lot of people in this country just were not comfortable with.
I would argue
winning.
people wanted to vote for a woman. I mean, they're ready to. This is the most accepting populace in the world. They're prepared to vote for Barack Obama, for Hillary Clinton. They just want a reason to.
Yeah.
And she didn't give them one.
It's more about the
your
right
fault.
candidate.
You're sexist, America, according to Hillary.
You know who I think might be cringing through all of this, though, is the Democratic Party, because they are wanting a restart. They want to have a better future. They want to start winning elections. They want to win the presidential election. When you have the Clintons continuously talking about what happened in the past, it doesn't bode well for them.
James Freeman has a column in the Wall Street Journal today calling it the Global Grievance Tour, because, as you say, the What Happened tour has now gone global.
It's very true.
And Oprah Winfrey was giving this commencement address and was talking to grads, and it seemed to be going after the president by suggesting you have to fight hysteria.
Yeah, she was speaking to the USC grads in Los Angeles, and here's just some of what she said about fighting that hysteria.
Thank you. This is what I know. The problem is everybody is meeting hysteria with more hysteria. And then we just are all becoming hysterical. And it's getting worse. This moment in time, this is your time to rise. It is. Even though you can't go anywhere. You can't stand in line at Starbucks. You can't go to a party. You can't go to any place without Everywhere you turn, people are talking about how bad things are, how terrible it is. If they go low, thank you, Michelle Obama. If they go low, we go to the polls.
So you remember that Oscar speech that she gave a few months ago, and after that you had social media going crazy about Oprah Winfrey running for president. She's now come out and said she's not going to run. But just it goes back to these graduation speeches. Do they want to be told how to think about their politics? Isn't this sort of that time to give them the motivation to go out and get that job and to live a life that they're proud of and to live their dreams? Why does it always have to get so political?
I don't know. Good question. I literally have no idea what she said. No, I mean, it's absolutely devoid of any substance whatsoever. We go to the polls. Is that assumption we're all liberal Democrats? We go to the polls. We reject Trump. What about the conservatives in the audience?
Yeah.
Were there few? Apparently, she's talking to a so-called journalism audience. I don't know.
So-called journalism.
So-called journalism audience. But it's just, the resistance continues.
All right.
That's what we're reporting.
What do you think about the global grievance tour? Should it end or
interpret hysterics?
Yeah. All right, turning now to some other headlines that we are following closely this morning. 4 troopers injured in a shootout, ambushed while trying to execute a high-risk warrant. Oklahoma authorities coming under fire as soon as they arrived at the home of a wanted drug suspect. Police firing back, killing the suspect before the building burst into flames, as you can see there. Investigators say it appears the house was booby-trapped and the suspect may have used surveillance cameras to see them coming. All troopers are expected to make a full recovery. Also this, President Trump declaring a major disaster in Hawaii following devastation on the state's Big Island. Relief coming 24 hours after the governor's desperate plea for help during Kilauea's volcanic activity. Governor David Ige thanking the president, tweeting this in part, "This opens the door to federal assistance and demonstrates a solid partnership with the federal government as we work to keep Hawaii residents safe. Costs to protect residents could exceed $2.9 million over the next month." And don't expect to hear whether or not President Trump will speak with Mueller's team until after his historic summit with North Korea. The president's new attorney, Rudy Giuliani, telling the Associated Press, quote, "Several things delayed us, with the primary one being the whole situation with North Korea. I wouldn't want to take his concentration off something far, far more important." Rudy recently said he would help wrap things up in a matter of weeks. Well, that makes sense. Look, there's a lot on their plate.
Stay focused.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Meanwhile, President Trump now nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, which President Obama won just 9 months into his presidency. Is this long overdue or a little too soon? We've got a fiery debate.
They called it the preemptive Peace Prize. And call it a blue-collar comedy comeback. First, it was Roseanne.
After freeing 3 American hostages and engineering a meeting with the North Korean leader, President Trump being floated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Even the New York Times is acknowledging Trump's effort. But as critics call the award unjustified, they forget President Obama was given the prize after only 9 months in office. Here to debate, Chairman of the American Conservative Union, Matt Schlapp, and radio talk show host Jamila Bey. Good morning, both of you.
Great to be here.
So what do you think, Matt? Is it time for this president to get the Nobel Peace Prize?
Well, I would say this. There's still a lot of progress to be made, both in Iran and in North Korea, but I think it's a very fair case to make for Donald Trump, because he has actually gone against the consensus, the international consensus, in these two important issues. And everybody has been rooting against him. It seems like, oh, he's going to cause war. Oh, this is going to result in irresponsible risk. And what it's actually done is he's gone back to what Reagan knew. You get peace when you project strength. And I think he's got a good case to make.
Jamila, what was the case for Barack Obama just 9 months in?
Quite frankly, you know, the Nobel Committee, I would argue, gave that prize on a number of factors, and few had to do with what the president at the time actually had accomplished. I think that there was a symbolic component of the Nobel Peace Prize that went to Barack Obama. And 9 months in, whether you like the guy, whether you didn't like the guy, that's really no time to judge presidency on its merits. He had, you know, 7 years and 3 months longer to go in the terms he served as president.
Sure, but Jamila, pardon me, you're saying that you're acknowledging that it was symbolism for Barack Obama as the first African-American president. It wasn't really based on his accomplishments.
Well, I am saying I am saying that. I'm also saying that the Nobel Committee who select who wins the Peace Prize do have a number of factors that they can choose from. Many of them are subjective. And to be blunt, 9 months in, you don't even get a baby after 9 months. You need another few weeks before you get your little strapping boy or girl to take home with you. So, yeah.
So, Matt, what's your sense of, because the Iran nuclear deal was a hot issue this week, and the fact is that this President Trump, says that it was a disaster.
Yeah, that's right. Ed, let me go back on this question about why Barack Obama got the Peace Prize. Barack Obama got the Nobel Peace Prize because he went around this country and ran for president, and actually went around Europe and apologized for Gitmo and our forces being in Iraq. And he said he was going to close Gitmo and pull out our forces. He did neither of those things. And that's why a lot of people who voted for him to get the prize have second thoughts.
So, Jamil, Jamil, let's go.
I got to admit, Matt's correct. And when we consider the fact that a lot of this awarding of this prize, which, has really no consequence in the long run, it's a prize, not an idea about here's what you've actually done. When we consider that abroad right now, Trump's approval rating is not particularly strong, that you've got a number of European nations and folks who are in the ear of the Nobel people saying, oh, well, we don't know what he's done. So I think it's a hard row to hoe. I don't think that this is something, this award is something that the president should really be banking on.
Well, hang on, Jamil. I want to go to that point. You're basically saying that because European leaders don't like this president, they're whispering in the ear of the Nobel Prize Committee, he shouldn't get it, and that his approval ratings are low. What about freeing hostages and eradicating ISIS? Aren't those accomplishments around the world that might merit a prize like this?
Of course they are, but the thing is, this is really we're still going to be trying to do the best for American people. We're still going to do the best for trying to provide peace around the world.
I'm not worried about any European leaders who are whispering to each other. I think that's one of the reasons why Donald Trump is the president, is that we're saying to Europe and to the consensus in Europe, hey, guys, we're going to lead. America's going to lead by doing what's in America's interest. If you want to come along with us, great. All right. And what we're seeing around the globe is Donald Trump is leading, and it's actually better and safer for America.
All right, Matt and Jamila, we're going to have to leave it there. Good debate. Appreciate you coming in.
Thanks, Ed.
All right. Meanwhile, Whoopi Goldberg wants our president waterboarded? Really?
Remember how the gentleman in the White House talked about torture on the campaign trail? Well, what I'd like to say is I would like you to try it.
Oh, my. Dr. James Mitchell helped develop the CIA's enhanced interrogation program. He's here to respond live next. And fire and fury, apparently a big hit at the Tehran Book Fair. Why Iran's supreme leader is sharing a picture of himself reading it. A pair of U.S. stealth fighter jets intercept 2 Russian bombers off the coast of Alaska. The planes capable of dropping nuclear bombs were closely monitored before leaving the area. Military officials say they never entered U.S. airspace, but came within 55 miles. Pete?
Ed, I like what you did with that stairway walk. All right, talk show host Whoopi Goldberg challenging President Trump to be waterboarded. Watch this.
Remember how the gentleman in the White House talked about torture on the campaign trail? What I'd like to say is I would like you to try it. I think people who have actually been tortured, who are saying this is not a good thing, you should listen to them, because you have never been tortured, and neither has Dick Cheney.
That was Whoopi. Let's bring in the author of Enhanced Interrogation. Dr. James Mitchell helped develop the CIA's Enhanced Interrogation Program and interrogated 9/11 planner Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. Doctor, thanks for being here this morning. So what do you make of Whoopi's comments and how they reflect the media's view of what you had to do to keep our country safe?
Well, honestly, who cares what Whoopi Goldberg thinks? You know, I'm tempted to just completely dismiss it, but on second thought, maybe she could show us how it's done. The next time there's credible intelligence of another catastrophic attack with the potential to kill thousands of people in the United States, maybe she could go to some unsafe place in the world and interrogate the terrorists, and I'll stay back home. I'll stay safe with my family, and I'll criticize her like she criticized us. You know, I think what she's doing really is value signaling. I think she's preening in front of an audience that likes her to show how much more morally superior she is to us. But I would say, as a psychologist, that she needs to be careful. And the reason for that is because a strong-willed man like Donald Trump, if he's exposed to the water board, he's not going to think like Whoopi Goldberg thinks. He may see its harshness and think, that's exactly what we need. We need to be doing more of that. Remember, when they were trying to decide whether or not waterboarding was legal, I waterboarded an assistant attorney general of the United States. He got up off the waterboard and decided that not only was it legal, not only was it not torture, but it didn't violate our treaties with other countries. So I think she just needs to be cautious.
So the idea, when you waterboarded that assistant AG, the idea was, I want you to see what this feels like. And he or she stood up and said, it brought me to the precipice. I probably would give up information, but ultimately I'm safe and just fine afterwards.
Actually, it was the other way around. He demanded that we waterboarded him so he could decide whether or not it was torture. And in the run-up to doing that, I waterboarded a CIA attorney, a woman, who would not allow us to waterboard the Attorney General, the Assistant Attorney General, until she was waterboarded. And both of them said essentially the same thing. It sucked. I wouldn't want to do it again, but I don't think it's torture. Now, the laws have changed, and that's the other thing that I think your viewers probably should be aware of. This is a tempest in a teapot. The laws have changed. The moral landscape has changed. Waterboarding is off the table now. So fussing and getting hysterical about waterboarding is an irrelevant waste of time. It's simply value signaling.
Dr. Mitchell, briefly, could there be a world again where waterboarding isn't off the table? Have we forgotten what our enemies will do to us?
Well, I actually don't think it's necessary right now, given our current threat situation and the capabilities of our organization. But if the bad guys ever get a nuclear weapon, you can bet your ass that it's going to be on the table again, because no president of the United States is going to allow a terrorist to set off a nuclear bomb in New York City or Los Angeles or Chicago or Seattle or Portland because they want to maintain the moral high ground. And if they do, they ought to be ran out of town on a rail, because that's just despicable.
Dr. James Mitchell, author of Enhanced Interrogation, you know of which you speak, sir. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Well, did the FBI spy on Trump? That's the question as the investigators become the investigated.
If for any reason we find out that this person, this asset of theirs, was in fact surveilling or spying on the Trump campaign prior to that time, then they've got an issue.
Dan Bongino here to weigh in live on that next.
Remember, the FBI has been doggedly sticking with this story, that what initiated this counterintelligence probe was a tip that they got in July about this supposed drunken conversation of a junior campaign aide named George Papadopoulos. If for any reason we find out that this person, this asset of theirs, was in fact surveilling or spying on the Trump campaign prior to that time, then they've got an issue, right? Because that's no longer their origin story, and they must have had something else that they were basing this on, whether it be the dossier or some other information that they were using as a reason to go out and surveil the Trump campaign.
So the suspense is growing about exactly what was going on with the FBI, the CIA, and the Trump campaign, and where this investigation started. Let's go to Dan Bongino.
I've been telling you all on this show forever that the Trump team was framed and was set up. And, of course, you know, the liberals and some of the anti-Trumpers say, oh, that's a conspiracy theory, except for the fact that most of it actually happened. And now we're getting confirmation on a lot of this. Guys, think about what Kim Strassel, by the way, it was an epic piece in the Wall Street Journal she wrote. Think about what she said in that piece. A human intelligence asset working for the FBI may have been embedded or working to gather information on the opposition political candidate in the form of the Trump team while Obama was in office. Do you understand what that means? that a human intelligence asset was spying on the Trump team, in addition to unmasking, in addition to foreign intelligence passing information to the United States on the Trump team as well, as CNN themselves reported?
Dan, by the way, I just want to say one other thing. Who was running the FBI in 2016?
Yeah, Jim Comey, and that's why Jim Comey's running scared right now.
Yeah, but the big question remains, Dan, what evidence are they using to surveil if this ends up being true, if they were surveilling the Trump campaign before any of this we knew about? Are they using the dossier that we know was funded by Democrats? Are they using James Comey's memos, which were basically his diaries and his personal feelings about President Trump? What evidence are they using that gives them the access that they need to monitor people?
Abby, here's the disturbing part about this. The evidence, it seems to have been they found a crime. They found a person and manufactured a crime. Not that they had a crime and then found the evidence later on. The person was Trump. They targeted Trump from the beginning. It appears that there were intelligence assets and people in the Obama administration and political operatives hell-bent on making Trump and Trump's team what I call dirtying them up. It's a law enforcement term. You know, make them look bad. So what we're going to do is we're going to send people in there, sources, and we're going to try to get them to admit to things they did or didn't do, what we would call a setup. Now, the list of suspects, by the way, is really short on this, and a lot of people have an idea who this source is, but I can tell you this. All the names are deeply troubling because some of them have connections to foreign intelligence and people who worked for foreign intelligence outlets before, which gives this thing a whole other disturbing angle we haven't even touched yet.
So, Dan, this is before the Comey memos. This is before the dossier. You're saying, but what Kim Strassel and others are saying is potentially there was an FBI asset put inside the Trump campaign to provide them information. What would we've asked this before, but was the premise that they really thought there was maybe some collusion or conversations with Russia, or would it have purely been a political motive of, we don't like this guy, we want inside his campaign?
I believe there were intelligence operators in the United States at a high level, some of them who were more political than intelligence, unfortunately. But, Pete, as you know, the intelligence community has no law enforcement authority at all. They could not open an investigation formally into Trump without the FBI. I believe when it becomes public what happened with upper-level managers at the CIA, that they pushed the FBI and basically used these sources to get information to push the FBI into opening a formal counterintelligence investigation into Trump because the Central Intelligence Agency couldn't do it. They're not a law enforcement entity. That's what happened, and that's where this source is going to come into play. And one more thing, the date matters here. Kim nailed it in that piece. If that George Papadopoulos meeting in May, if this source entered the intelligence scene before that, that means the FBI's whole story about how this started is bunk.
Yeah.
It's garbage.
And as Ed said, who was head of the FBI at that time, James Comey, he's someone that might be quite nervous about that. When asked about Devin Nunes asking for these FBI classified info, he says that is dangerous to ask for. Here's what he said.
I thought everyone understood that the absolute core of the intelligence community, including the FBI, is its human sources. That's really all the FBI is. That's really all the CIA is. You cannot overstate the danger in that kind of behavior to the security of the United States.
What do you make of that response?
Abby, there's a lot in there. Let me unpack this for you. It is dangerous what Jim Comey said, the Nunes investigation. To him, to Jim Comey, because it's going to uncover a couple of things. Jim Comey hid this investigation from congressional oversight, which he was obligated to do by procedure. For 8 months, he was supposed to give quarterly briefings. He hid this investigation into Trump for 8 months. Another thing, he's right. The FBI is sources. Sources are a gold mine for the FBI. Here's the problem, Abby. You have to verify the sources.
Right.
Jim Comey was the FBI director where they used unverified garbage to investigate the now president of the United States, former presidential candidate.
We just showed a picture
of
Republican Chuck Grassley. He's also demanding questions about FBI memos and information that might show whether or not Michael Flynn really lied to the FBI, which is a whole other question we'll be getting into all weekend long, because that's a big story as well. Dan Bongino, thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Dan. Good to see you, Dan.
You got it, guys.
All right, turning now to some other headlines we are following. The NRA is suing New York Governor Andrew Cuomo and the state, alleging a, quote, backlisting campaign. The lawsuit accuses Cuomo and the state's financial services department of trying to get banks and insurers to cut ties with the gun group. And this coming after New York fined an NRA insurance broker for $7 million, claiming it didn't have a license to do business in the state. The NRA is seeking millions of damages. And Starbucks now telling employees let anyone use their bathrooms. The new policy change comes after the controversial arrest of 2 black men at a store in Philadelphia in April, sparking nationwide outrage. The coffee chain says it wants all paying and non-paying customers to feel welcome. The company plans to close thousands of stores on May 29th for racial bias training.